What if everything you thought you needed for happiness was actually holding you back? Think about that for a moment. The house, the gadgets, the clothes, the subscriptions, the social media feeds, the ambitions that keep multiplying even after you've met your previous goals. We're taught, almost hypnotized, to believe that more is the answer. More options, more stuff, more followers, more experiences. But what if it's not? What if it's less that we need, not more? In today's world, we are drowning in things. Not just physical items, but mental clutter. Notifications, tasks, deadlines, bills, responsibilities, opinions. Everyone and everything wants our attention. Every screen we open screams at us, "Buy this, watch that, you're missing out." And deep down, we know that it's exhausting us. We're more anxious than ever, despite having more comfort than any previous generation. We have the entire world in our pockets, yet we struggle to sit still with our thoughts for more than a few minutes. We feel overwhelmed, overstimulated, and strangely empty. This is the paradox of modern life. We've built a society that praises accumulation but punishes stillness. We rush to fill our homes, calendars, and minds without asking whether the things we're adding bring clarity or chaos. And while it might seem harmless at first, there's a real cost to all of this. The more clutter we allow into our lives, mental, emotional, physical, the less space we leave for what truly matters, like clarity, peace, focus, presence, joy. And this is where the idea of minimalism steps in, not as a trendy aesthetic or a productivity hack, but as a radical rethinking of how we live. Minimalism isn't about having a perfect white-walled house or owning only 30 things. It's about making space. It's about subtracting the noise so you can finally hear your own voice again. It's about asking, what actually matters to me? And having the courage to cut everything else away. But minimalism alone isn't enough. Without depth, it becomes another hollow trend, another thing to show off on Instagram. That's why we need philosophy. Philosophy gives minimalism its soul. It gives us the tools to understand why we crave more in the first place and how we can live more wisely, more intentionally. When you combine minimalism with the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, Taoism, Epicureanism, and Zen Buddhism, you begin to see that the solution isn't just in cleaning your closet, it's in cleaning your mind, your values, and your way of being in the world. You don't need to renounce all your possessions or move to a monastery to experience peace. You just need to start asking different questions. Questions like, do I really need this? What am I chasing and why? What would my life look like if I weren't always trying to keep up? Minimalism, when approached philosophically, becomes more than a design choice. It becomes a way to reclaim your life, a way to walk away from noise and back toward clarity. And if you've ever felt overwhelmed, burnt out, or like you're constantly sprinting just to stay in place, then perhaps it's time to consider that the problem isn't that you don't have enough. It's that you have too much of the wrong things. And once you let go of those, you make space for what you were always really searching for. Minimalism at its core is about intentionality. It's about choosing what truly matters and letting go of what doesn't. It's not about living with nothing or depriving yourself of comfort. It's about removing the excess so that what remains has more space, more meaning, and more presence in your life. It's living in such a way that your environment, your schedule, your thoughts, and your priorities are aligned with your values. Minimalism isn't a one-size-fits-all rulebook. It's a mindset, a filter you apply to every aspect of your life to help you decide, is this helping me live better, or is it just noise? One of the biggest misconceptions about minimalism is that it's about austerity, that it means owning only a set number of possessions, living in an empty apartment with white walls, and refusing to enjoy anything material. But that's not minimalism, that's extremism. True minimalism doesn't say own nothing, it says own what serves you. If a bookshelf full of books brings you joy and reflection, it belongs. If a single chair and one spoon make your life more peaceful, then that's enough. Minimalism is about designing your life in a way that supports your well-being, not impressing others, not copying a trend, but choosing simplicity with purpose. In recent years, minimalism has exploded in popularity. You've probably seen it on YouTube channels, Instagram accounts, Netflix documentaries, or lifestyle blogs. Marie Kondo became a household name with her idea of sparking joy. Digital minimalism, led by thinkers like Cal Newport, encouraged people to take control of their technology use. Even mainstream advertising has started selling minimalist products. But while this rise in popularity has helped many people discover the benefits of living with less, it also comes with a downside. It often turns minimalism into a surface-level aesthetic rather than a meaningful lifestyle shift. That's the danger of trends. They can water down powerful ideas. Minimalism isn't just about how your apartment looks. It's not about posting pictures of empty desks or throwing out 90% of your wardrobe. Those things might be part of it, but they're not the heart of it. The heart of minimalism is about asking better questions. What do I actually need to live a good life? Why do I keep filling my life with things that add stress instead of value? What am I really searching for beneath all this accumulation? Let's face it, we live in a world where people are drowning in stuff, but starving for meaning. We buy more clothes, but feel less confident. We scroll for hours, but feel more disconnected. We chase careers, achievements, and upgrades, but still feel like something's missing. And this isn't just a coincidence, it's the consequence of living in a system that equates more with better, but as we're starting to see, more often leads to overwhelm, not joy. So we're left with a very honest, very unsettling question. Why, despite owning more than ever before, are people less happy? You'd think with all the advancements in technology, transportation, convenience, and comfort, we'd be living in an age of contentment. But the reality is just the opposite. Rates of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and burnout are all rising. People feel more stressed, more distracted, more purposeless. And maybe, just maybe, it's because we've filled our lives with so much that we've lost sight of what really matters. This is where minimalism can help, but not the shallow, Instagram-filtered version. The kind of minimalism that's rooted in ancient philosophy. Because long before minimalism became a buzzword, it was a way of life for many of the world's wisest thinkers. The Stoics, for example, believed in focusing only on what is essential. They trained themselves to avoid unnecessary desires, to embrace discomfort, and to find contentment in simplicity. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, wrote extensively about letting go of things that distract the soul. He knew that power, fame, and luxury were fleeting, and that peace comes from within, not from possessions. Taoism, another ancient tradition, teaches the value of flowing with life rather than constantly trying to control it. Taoist masters emphasize simplicity, stillness, and detachment from the material world, not as a rejection of pleasure, but as a return to harmony. They saw the beauty in empty spaces, the wisdom in silence, and the power in doing less. Epictetus, often misunderstood as a hedonist, actually preached the exact opposite of indulgence. He believed that happiness came from modesty, self-sufficiency, and the pursuit of intellectual and emotional pleasures over material ones. To Epictetus, the simple life was the path to the most lasting joy. Zen Buddhism brought perhaps the most refined version of minimalist philosophy. Its core is emptiness, not as a void, but as a space of infinite possibility. Zen practice involves shedding layers of distraction, clutter, and ego until only presence remains. Through mindfulness, simplicity, and inner clarity, Zen aims to cut through life's noise and reveal the peace already within. These philosophical traditions weren't about cleaning out closets, they were about cleaning out illusions. They understood that when we chase too much, we lose touch with ourselves, and that by doing less, not more, we actually become more alive, more focused, more at peace. So when we ask, why are we less happy with more stuff? The answer is not just psychological or economic, it's philosophical. We've forgotten how to live with intention. We've mistaken accumulation for fulfillment. And we've stopped listening to the wisdom of stillness, of simplicity, of clarity. Minimalism, in its most powerful form, is a return to that wisdom. It's a modern answer rooted in ancient insight. It's not a rejection of the world, but a re-evaluation of how we live in it. And in the sections to come, we'll dive deeper into each of these philosophical perspectives. Stoicism, Taoism, Epicureanism, and Zen, and see how their timeless teachings can guide us to live with less, but feel so much more. At the heart of Stoicism lies a simple but life-changing idea. We suffer more from our judgments than from the world itself. The Stoics taught that our well-being does not depend on external circumstances, but on how we choose to perceive and respond to them. And one of their most enduring principles is this: learn to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot. This may seem like common sense, but few people actually live this way. We spend enormous amounts of energy worrying about things outside our control. What others think of us, whether we'll be successful, if we're keeping up with others, if we have enough. But according to the Stoics, this is wasted effort. Real peace begins when you accept that only your thoughts, actions, and attitudes are within your power. Everything else, fame, fortune, other people's opinions, even your own body, is ultimately beyond your full command. Once you internalize the Stoic division of control, you begin to see that many of the things you accumulate are attempts to control the uncontrollable. You buy expensive clothes to control how others perceive you. You fill your calendar with obligations to prove your value. You decorate your life with things that scream, "I'm doing well," because deep down, you fear that without them, you won't be enough. But the Stoic would ask, does this truly serve you? Or are you just reacting to fear, insecurity, or ego? This is where the philosophy meets practice. Take Marcus Aurelius, for instance. He was the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, and yet in his private writings, he constantly reminded himself to strip away anything unnecessary. He asked himself regularly, does this add value or meaning to my life? For a man surrounded by luxury, that's a radical question, and it's still radical today. If an emperor can ask himself whether his wealth, power, or possessions actually matter, so can we. Try applying Marcus's question to your own life. Open your closet, scroll through your phone apps, look at your calendar and ask, does this add meaning? If it doesn't, it's probably a source of friction, not peace. When you reduce these unnecessary inputs, you create room for clarity, not just physically, but mentally. Imagine waking up in a clean space without visual clutter. Imagine not being pulled in 10 different directions by notifications and noise. That's not just aesthetic, that's mental discipline. And that's what Stoicism offers, the clarity that comes from cutting away what's not essential. Seneca, another giant of Stoic thought, went even deeper into the connection between simplicity and contentment. He believed that wealth is not about having much, but about needing little. In one of his letters he wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." This flips the modern idea of success completely on its head. Today, we are conditioned to think that success means having more money, more status, more stuff. But Seneca would say, the more you crave, the less free you are. You become a servant to your desires. Seneca even practiced voluntary discomfort. He would sleep on the floor, eat plain food, or wear simple clothes. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to train himself to see how little he actually needed to be content. He didn't want to be enslaved by luxury or comfort. He wanted to prove to himself that happiness was internal, that if everything external were taken away, he would still remain whole. Now, let's bring this into the real world with a modern example. Think of someone like Ryan Holiday, a contemporary writer who has brought Stoicism into modern life. He lives on a farm, keeps a minimalist workspace, and writes about how cutting out distractions and non-essential possessions has made him not only more productive, but more focused and at peace. He practices what he calls practical Stoicism. No clutter, no noise, just discipline, presence, and purpose. And this isn't just about work, it's about how he lives, how he thinks, how he raises his children. That's the power of Stoic minimalism. It doesn't just clean your house, it cleans your mind. Another real-world example might be someone in a high-pressure job who learns Stoic philosophy and realizes that their relentless chase for status and income is actually eroding their peace of mind. Maybe they downsize their home, simplify their lifestyle, and begin journaling in the mornings. They reflect on what truly matters, and gradually the noise in their life fades. They become more grounded, more present, and less reactive to the chaos around them. That's not a lifestyle change, that's a transformation of values. So how can you begin applying Stoic minimalism in your own life? Start with daily reflection. This is one of the most powerful tools in the Stoic toolkit. Each morning or evening, take a few minutes to ask yourself, what am I holding on to that I don't need? What in my day was outside of my control, and how did I respond? What do I truly need to be content? Write your answers down. Make this a habit. Over time, you'll begin to notice patterns, places where you're chasing things that don't matter, habits that clutter your mind, distractions that drain your energy. Next, apply the Stoic filter to your environment. Go through your belongings, not with the question, do I use this, but does this contribute to a meaningful life? If something serves a clear purpose or brings genuine joy, keep it. If it's just occupying space, mentally or physically, let it go. Then apply it to your time. Look at your commitments. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it out of obligation, fear, status, or is it aligned with your values? The Stoics were ruthless in cutting out what didn't matter, not because they were cold, but because they understood that life is short and attention is sacred. One final practice: embrace voluntary simplicity now and then. Try going a day without your phone, eat a plain meal, wear simple clothes, not as punishment, but as training, to show yourself how little you actually need to be okay, to prove to yourself that peace isn't bought, it's cultivated. In the end, Stoicism teaches us that clarity doesn't come from having more, it comes from needing less. And control doesn't come from grasping tighter, it comes from letting go of what you can't control and focusing deeply on what you can. In that space between letting go of the unnecessary and embracing the essential, you find freedom. And this truly is the foundation of philosophical minimalism. Not just a clean desk or an organized closet, but a disciplined, intentional, and deeply free mind. A mind that knows what matters and has the courage to live accordingly. Taoism offers a radically different perspective from the world most of us live in today. It's not obsessed with control, achievement, or even understanding everything. Instead, it focuses on aligning with the natural flow of life, the Tao. The Tao, according to ancient Chinese philosophy, is the mysterious force that runs through all things: nature, time, the universe, and even human behavior. It's not something you can see or hold. It's something you feel when you stop resisting and start flowing. And this philosophy of effortless alignment with life gives us a powerful lens to understand and apply minimalism, not as a rigid rule book, but as a way of being. Taoism teaches that much of our suffering comes from resistance, trying too hard to shape reality into our idea of what it should be. But the Tao says, let go, stop pushing, stop forcing, stop overcomplicating. Just like a river doesn't fight its way around rocks. It flows naturally, effortlessly, so too should we move through life with grace and acceptance. This idea is deeply connected to simplicity. The more we try to control everything, our possessions, our image, our outcomes, the more tangled and chaotic life becomes. But when we let go, when we return to what is simple, gentle, and natural, peace begins to emerge. Lao Tzu, the legendary author of the Tao Te Ching, captured this beautifully in a line that still resonates centuries later. Simplicity, patience, compassion, these are your greatest treasures. Notice that he doesn't mention wealth, success, intelligence, or control. He points us toward inner qualities, ways of relating to the world that have nothing to do with accumulation and everything to do with connection. Simplicity in Taoism isn't a downgrade. It's not about losing anything. It's about making space to actually feel the rhythm of life again. And when you begin to live this way, minimalism becomes a natural outcome, not a forced one. One of the most beautiful concepts in Taoism is the value of empty space. In Western culture, we often think of emptiness as negative, something that needs to be filled. An empty shelf? Let's buy something to put on it. An empty hour? Let's fill it with scrolling, watching, or working. But the Taoist sees emptiness differently. Lao Tzu wrote, "We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want." In other words, it's not the material that gives value, it's the space it creates. Apply this to your life. Look around your home. Where is there room to breathe? Where is there stillness? Is your physical space overfilled with objects you barely notice? Is your mind constantly occupied with worries, tasks, and noise? Taoism invites you to consider that the absence of things can be more powerful than the presence of them. That stillness can be more nourishing than stimulation. That space can be more meaningful than stuff. This isn't abstract, it has direct practical applications. One of the simplest Taoist-inspired exercises is this. Walk through your home, not to clean or organize, but just to observe. Notice how much is actually there. Notice the items you walk past every day but never use, the books you never read, the trinkets you don't remember buying. Then, gently ask yourself, not harshly, but with curiosity, am I holding on to this because it serves me now, or because I once thought it might? Taoism doesn't demand you throw it all away. It simply invites you to let go of your grip, to release your attachment to outcomes, to identity tied up in things, to the belief that more will make you more. Another practice is creating intentional stillness. In Taoist homes and temples, space is honored. Rooms are simple, open, and uncluttered, not for appearance's sake, but because empty space is seen as sacred. Try bringing this into your own environment. Clear off a surface, leave a space open, choose one corner of a room and keep it minimal. Just a chair and a lamp or a plant and a cushion. Let that space represent clarity, openness, calm. Don't fill it. Let it breathe. On a deeper level, Taoism also encourages emotional minimalism. Letting go doesn't just apply to objects, it also applies to expectations and judgments. One of the most toxic habits we develop is clinging to specific outcomes. I must get this job. They must love me back. This plan must succeed. Taoism reminds us that life doesn't follow our plans, it flows according to its own wisdom, and the more we try to force it, the more frustrated we become. But when we let go of our need to control everything, when we soften our expectations and stay present, we start to feel peace again. So how do we apply this in daily life? Start small. Every morning, practice non-attachment. When something doesn't go your way, traffic, a missed deadline, a changed plan, pause and remind yourself, this is not mine to control. Let it go. Breathe into the moment. Focus on how you're responding, not on what you can't change. That alone can remove enormous clutter from your mind. In your environment, choose one area to simplify, not because it's messy, but because it's overstimulating. Maybe it's your desk, maybe it's your phone screen, maybe it's your schedule. Remove a few things, not all, just a few. Leave the space open. Watch how it feels. Let stillness speak. Another Taoist-inspired ritual is the practice of nothingness. Set aside just 5 minutes a day to do nothing. No phone, no book, no talking, no to-do list. Just sit or stand or lie down in silence. Let your thoughts pass. Don't chase them. Don't analyze them. Just be. This practice is subtle but powerful. Over time, it reconnects you to the present, to your body, and to the quiet intelligence of the moment. The actionable takeaway here is simple but profound. Make room. In your space, your time, your mind. Don't just declutter, deload. Don't just simplify, soften. Taoism isn't about conquering life. It's about aligning with it. And when you begin to live this way, you'll notice something beautiful happening. You'll feel less urgency, less pressure, less grasping. And in that quiet, open space, joy arises. Not from stimulation, but from presence. Taoism teaches us that the way to freedom isn't through control, it's through surrender. And minimalism, when practiced through the Taoist lens, becomes more than just an external lifestyle. It becomes a way of moving through the world, gently, lightly, intentionally, with space to breathe and space to be. When people hear the name Epicurus, they often assume he was some kind of ancient party philosopher, someone who advocated for indulgence, luxury, and doing whatever feels good. The word Epicurean in modern language has become linked with fine dining, gourmet experiences, and a kind of elite pleasure-seeking lifestyle. But the truth about Epicurus and his philosophy is almost the complete opposite. He was not a hedonist in the way people often think. He didn't believe that endless pleasure was the goal of life. He believed that peace was, and he taught that the most reliable way to reach that peace was through simplicity, moderation, and contentment with very little. Epicurus lived a life of intentional simplicity. He had a small garden, ate plain meals, and surrounded himself with friends who valued honest conversation and self-reflection over wealth or fame. For him, the greatest pleasures were not found in excess or extravagance, but in the freedom from fear, anxiety, and constant craving. His version of pleasure was calm, sustainable, and deeply personal. It wasn't the high of excitement. It was the comfort of being at ease with yourself and your life. One of his most profound and often quoted lines is this: "Not what we have, but what we enjoy constitutes our abundance." This single sentence flips the modern consumer mindset on its head. It suggests that true wealth doesn't come from owning more, it comes from enjoying what we already have. You can live in a palace and feel empty, or live in a one-room apartment and feel rich, because abundance, in the Epicurean sense, is not about accumulation, it's about appreciation. This philosophy fits perfectly with the minimalist mindset. While minimalism encourages us to reduce our possessions and obligations, Epicureanism teaches us why that matters. When you strip away the noise of unnecessary desire, you create space for real pleasure, the kind that doesn't expire after the thrill fades, the kind that nourishes you without demanding more. Epicurus divided human desires into three categories: natural and necessary, natural but unnecessary, and neither natural nor necessary. This framework offers a powerful lens for re-evaluating what we pursue. Natural and necessary desires include things like food, shelter, friendship, rest. These are the basics of a content life. Natural but unnecessary desires might include fancy meals, luxury clothing, or elaborate entertainment. These things can be enjoyed, but they're not required for happiness. Neither natural nor necessary desires are the ones that cause us the most trouble: status, fame, constant novelty, the need to impress others. Epicurus warned that chasing these unnatural and unnecessary desires would only lead to dissatisfaction, anxiety, and dependence on external validation. Instead, he recommended that we train ourselves to find joy in the simple, quiet, and sustainable pleasures of life. So what does that look like today, in a world dominated by advertising, consumer culture, and social media comparison? It starts with slowing down and noticing where your pleasures actually come from. Are they real, or are they reactions to societal pressure? For example, when you buy a new gadget, are you really excited about the object itself, or are you trying to fill a void, or impress others, or feel momentarily important? When you book a vacation, is it for genuine rest and connection, or for the pictures you'll post? These are not judgments. They're invitations to reflect. An Epicurean approach invites you to ask, what do I actually enjoy? Not what I'm told I should enjoy, not what others seem to enjoy, but what brings me quiet, fulfilling satisfaction. That might be a walk in nature, a deep conversation, a home-cooked meal, a morning with no agenda. These pleasures don't require money, status, or external achievement. They require attention, presence, and self-awareness. One practical step you can take is what I call the desire inventory. Sit down with a piece of paper and write out your major desires, things you spend your time and energy pursuing. Then label each one using Epicurus's categories. Is it natural and necessary? Natural but unnecessary? Or neither? Be honest with yourself. You may be surprised at how many of your daily actions are driven by desires that don't actually lead to contentment. Once you see this clearly, you can begin to let go of the ones that don't serve you and simplify your life in a way that feels liberating rather than limiting. Another helpful exercise is to practice intentional gratitude for simple pleasures. Each day, make a habit of noticing and mentally acknowledging the small joys in your life. A warm cup of tea, a moment of silence, a text from a friend, the way sunlight comes through your window. Don't just notice them, savor them. The mind that learns to find abundance in the ordinary becomes far less vulnerable to the traps of comparison and craving. Epicurus also emphasized the importance of friendship as one of life's essential pleasures. He believed that meaningful relationships were key to human happiness, not networking, not social climbing, but honest, mutual, supportive connection. In your minimalist journey, think about how much time and energy you dedicate to nurturing the relationships that actually matter. Are you investing in people who bring peace and joy into your life? Or are you distracted by shallow interactions that leave you drained? There's also the idea of voluntary simplicity, which echoes Epicurean values. It's the conscious choice to live with less, not out of guilt, but out of clarity. To walk away from unnecessary desire is to walk towards something better. More time, more peace, more freedom. This could mean spending less money, decluttering your home, simplifying your meals, or even scaling back on work hours to reclaim more of your life. Again, the key is intentionality. You don't give things up because they're bad. You let them go because you found something better. And that something better is often just space. Space in your day to breathe. Space in your mind to think. Space in your heart to be still. In a world obsessed with more, space is one of the most luxurious things you can have. And you don't have to buy it. You just have to stop filling it. To live like Epicurus is to understand that pleasure is not found in abundance, but in appreciated sufficiency. That less can not only be enough, it can be more stable, more joyful, more real. So here's your Epicurean takeaway. Identify one desire in your life that causes unnecessary stress. Ask yourself whether it's truly necessary or just conditioned. Try letting go of it for a week. Replace it with a simple, low-cost pleasure that's easy to access, like taking a walk, writing in a journal, cooking a basic meal, or reconnecting with an old friend. Do this not as a discipline, but as an experiment. See how it feels. You might discover that what you thought you needed was only ever a distraction from what you already had. Epicurus didn't promise excitement, he promised peace. And in a world that never stops shouting, that's the kind of quiet we all need more of. Zen Buddhism offers a powerful and poetic approach to minimalism, one that doesn't begin in the closet or the calendar, but in the mind. While other philosophies may emphasize detachment, simplicity, or intentionality, Zen focuses on direct experience. It doesn't give you a long list of doctrines or intellectual frameworks to memorize. Instead, it invites you to look, to sit, to breathe, to pay attention to the present moment so completely that the noise of your thoughts begins to dissolve and something deeper, something simpler starts to emerge. At the heart of Zen is the practice of mindfulness, an awareness that is rooted in right now. Zen teaches that most of our suffering comes from living either in the past, through regret and nostalgia, or in the future, through worry and anticipation. We rarely experience the moment we are in, even though it's the only one that actually exists. This disconnect is what fills our minds with clutter. We carry around stories, identities, anxieties, and judgments like old, unnecessary luggage. Zen asks us to put that luggage down, not through force, but through attention. When we learn to be fully present, to accept reality exactly as it is, something magical happens. We begin to see clearly again, and that clarity is the very foundation of peace. One of the most misunderstood concepts in Zen is emptiness. To many people, emptiness sounds bleak or depressing, like something is missing. But in Zen, emptiness isn't a lack, it's a kind of spaciousness. It's the idea that when you strip away mental clutter, assumptions, and attachments, you don't end up with nothing. You end up with openness, with freedom, with pure potential. Think of an empty bowl. It's not useless because it's empty. In fact, it's useful because it's empty. You can fill it with food, water, flowers, or nothing at all. Its emptiness is its gift. Zen applies this metaphor to the mind. A cluttered mind, like a bowl overflowing with noise, has no room for new experience. But a clear mind, an empty mind, is full of potential. It can hold anything, receive anything, respond with freshness and presence rather than reactivity and habit. This is where Zen minimalism shines. It's not about cleaning out your garage, though that may happen too. It's about creating mental space, about letting go of internal noise so you can actually hear your own breath, feel the warmth of a cup of tea, see the light shifting through your window without narrating it, judging it, or needing it to be different. It's a radical return to being instead of always becoming. So how do we begin? The foundation of Zen practice is meditation, often called zazen or sitting meditation. It's incredibly simple but not always easy. You find a quiet space, sit comfortably with your back straight, and focus on your breath. Inhale, exhale. When your thoughts wander, which they will, you gently notice them and then return to the breath, over and over again. You're not trying to stop thoughts. You're not trying to achieve anything. You're just sitting, just being. At first, your mind will probably resist. It's used to movement, stimulation, distraction. But with practice, you start to notice a shift. You become more aware of your own inner patterns. You realize how often your mind races without reason, how many judgments and anxieties arise uninvited. But instead of being trapped in them, you learn to simply observe. You create space between stimulus and response, and in that space is where peace begins. This practice of mindfulness meditation isn't just spiritual fluff. It has real, measurable effects. Neuroscience has shown that consistent mindfulness practice can reduce stress, increase focus, improve emotional regulation, and even change the structure of the brain in ways that promote calm and clarity. It's one of the most accessible and effective tools for mental minimalism, and it requires no money, no special equipment, and no beliefs. Just your breath, your body, and your attention. Another powerful Zen practice is what's sometimes called everyday mindfulness. You bring the same presence from sitting meditation into your daily activities. Washing dishes, walking, eating, even folding laundry. These become opportunities to practice presence. Instead of rushing through them to get to the next thing, you slow down. You feel the texture of the plate, the rhythm of your feet, the temperature of the water. You allow yourself to be fully where you are. This kind of practice grounds you. It reduces the compulsive need to multitask or distract yourself, and it transforms ordinary moments into sources of peace. Zen also invites us to examine our attachment to thoughts. In the Zen tradition, thoughts are seen as clouds, temporary, ever-changing, and ultimately not who you are. You are the sky behind them. This idea can be incredibly liberating. When you stop identifying with every thought or feeling that arises, you gain distance. You learn to witness your experience rather than be consumed by it, and with that witnessing comes freedom. So how can you bring this into your own life? First, create a small space for daily Zen practice. It could be 5 minutes of silent sitting in the morning. No phone, no music, just stillness. Sit, breathe, notice. If thoughts come, let them pass like clouds. When you get distracted, return to your breath. That's the practice. It's not about being perfect, it's about returning. Second, choose one daily activity to perform mindfully. Brushing your teeth, drinking your morning coffee, walking to the store. Instead of doing it automatically, slow down. Pay attention. Notice the sounds, smells, sensations. Be where you are. Third, reduce noise. This could be literal noise, background TV, constant music, ambient chaos, or it could be informational noise, social media, headlines, to-do lists. Try carving out one quiet hour a day. No inputs, no multitasking, just stillness, however you define it. Finally, reflect on what you carry mentally. What are the grudges, the worries, the inner dialogues that play on repeat? What would happen if you didn't hold on so tightly to them? Zen doesn't ask you to suppress them. It asks you to see through them, to notice that they are not fixed truths. They are just weather, and like weather, they will pass. The actionable takeaway here is this. Peace doesn't come from adding more. It comes from subtracting what blocks it. And most of what blocks peace isn't out there. It's inside us. Zen helps us see that clearly, not by preaching, but by pointing us back to the breath, to the body, to the moment. In a culture obsessed with doing, Zen reminds us to be. In a world addicted to noise, Zen offers silence. In a society driven by accumulation, Zen shows us the power of letting go. And when we combine Zen practice with minimalism, we begin to realize that simplicity is not the absence of richness, it is the presence of what is essential. And often what is essential is already here. We just need to clear away the clutter to see it. Philosophical minimalism isn't just a theory or something to admire from afar. It's a way of living that you can apply every single day. And when you combine the wisdom of Stoicism, Taoism, Epicureanism, and Zen Buddhism, what you get isn't a rigid system but a flexible, deeply human guide to simplifying your life in the most meaningful ways. Each of these philosophies contributes something essential. Stoicism teaches clarity and control. Taoism offers flow and harmony. Epicureanism reminds us to enjoy simple pleasures, and Zen grounds us in the present moment. Now that we've explored their core ideas, let's bring them together into a practical lifestyle you can actually live, starting today. Let's begin with physical minimalism. This is often the first area people think of when they hear the word minimalism, and for good reason. Our physical environments reflect and reinforce our mental state. When your space is cluttered, your mind feels chaotic. When your space is clear, your mind can rest. But philosophical minimalism doesn't mean throwing everything away for the sake of emptiness. It means curating your surroundings with intentionality. The Stoics would ask, is this essential? Marcus Aurelius posed this exact question in his writings, urging himself to let go of anything that did not directly serve his higher purpose. Taoism would ask, does this create harmony? Because in Taoist thought, objects that disrupt the natural flow of space also disrupt your energy. Epictetus would ask, does this bring true pleasure? Not excitement or status, but quiet joy. And Zen would ask, can you be fully present with this item? If the answer is no, it may be distracting more than serving. So when you go to declutter your home, don't just ask if something is useful or not. Ask deeper questions. Do I use this regularly? Does this item support the life I want to live? Am I keeping this out of fear, guilt, or habit? Would I buy this again today, knowing what I know now? You don't need to get rid of everything. In fact, don't approach this like a purge. Do it like a meditation, one drawer at a time, one shelf at a time. As you move through your space, ask yourself, what do I actually need to live well? You'll find that it's probably far less than you thought. Once your physical space begins to align with your values, move to digital minimalism, which may be even more important in today's world. We are bombarded with digital noise, messages, notifications, ads, headlines, scrolling feeds. It's constant. And it fragments our attention, clutters our thoughts, and wears down our sense of peace. From a philosophical standpoint, digital clutter is a modern form of attachment. It's our attempt to stay constantly connected, constantly stimulated, constantly affirmed. But the more input you allow in, the harder it becomes to hear your own voice. That's where digital minimalism, informed by philosophy, can change everything. The Stoics would suggest putting limits on how much information you consume, especially if it's outside your control. Don't waste your energy on things that don't concern your actions. Taoism would suggest disconnecting from digital noise to reconnect with the Tao, the flow of the present. Epicureanism would remind you that constant scrolling is rarely a source of genuine pleasure. It's more often a form of escape. And Zen would tell you to turn the phone off, sit still, and breathe. So how do you practice digital minimalism? Start with a digital audit. Look at every app on your phone and ask, does this serve a meaningful purpose? Unsubscribe from newsletters you never read. Turn off non-essential notifications. Move distracting apps off your home screen or delete them entirely. Choose specific times of day for checking email or social media instead of letting it happen constantly and unconsciously. Then replace digital noise with digital intention. Instead of opening your phone out of boredom, open it with purpose, to message a friend, learn something new, or create. Set time limits on social media. Use tools like website blockers during focused work periods. Create tech-free rituals, like no screens an hour before bed, or a digital Sabbath once a week, where you disconnect completely. Even more powerful, schedule time for silence. A 10-minute walk without your phone, a meal eaten without distractions, a day without headphones. These small pauses reset your nervous system and reconnect you with the deeper rhythm of life. Next is mental minimalism, the practice of simplifying your inner world. This is where philosophy really shines, because all four traditions we've explored understand that peace is not about what's happening outside of us. It's about what's happening within. Start with Stoic journaling, a daily practice of reflection and clarity. In the morning, ask, what am I likely to face today? What is within my control? How can I respond with integrity? At night, reflect, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What can I improve tomorrow? This simple act of reflection creates clarity. It clears mental clutter. It helps you focus on what matters. It aligns your actions with your values. From the Zen perspective, practice mindful observation. Notice your thoughts without reacting to them. You don't need to fight your mind, just witness it. Throughout the day, pause and take a breath. Ask, where am I right now? What am I feeling without judgment? What is this moment asking of me? Even a 5-minute mindfulness session, just sitting and breathing, can create space between thoughts and reactions. And that space is where peace lives. Epicureanism contributes by reminding us to regularly check in with our desires. What are you chasing today? Is it truly necessary? Will it bring lasting joy? Or is it a distraction from what actually matters? The Epicurean mind is trained to want less but enjoy more. So take time weekly to list the simple pleasures you've experienced. A walk, a conversation, a quiet cup of tea. Reflect on how these moments required almost nothing, but gave so much. Taoism helps us release the need to control everything. Once a week, practice what I'd call radical surrender. Whatever happens that day, traffic, delays, disruptions, use it as training. Don't resist, flow, smile. Say to yourself, this is not a mistake, this is the way. You'll be amazed at how light you feel when you stop trying to force outcomes and start riding the wave of life. To bring all this together, here's a simple daily, weekly, monthly action plan. Daily. 5-10 minutes of silent mindfulness meditation, morning or evening. 5 minutes of Stoic journaling. Intentions in the morning, reflection at night. 1 mindful activity. A walk, a meal, or a task done slowly and intentionally. Limit phone use, no aimless scrolling. 1 act of conscious enjoyment, savoring a simple pleasure. Weekly. Digital detox day or half day, no social media, no unnecessary screens. 1 decluttering task, 1 drawer, shelf, or digital folder. Reflection session. Review your desires. What are you chasing? Is it essential? Reconnect with a friend or loved one. Monthly. Larger decluttering session, home, workspace, or digital systems. Day of silence or solitude, even partial, to reconnect with yourself. Reread or reflect on a key philosophical idea and see how you've applied it. Recommit to simplicity by reviewing your habits, commitments, and routines. Philosophical minimalism is not about becoming a monk or living in a tiny house, unless that's what you want. It's about removing everything that distracts you from living with purpose, peace, and joy. It's about choosing less, but better. And in a world that constantly pressures you to do more, have more, be more, choosing less is one of the most powerful things you can do. Because ultimately, a minimalist life isn't an empty life. It's a full one, full of presence, meaning, freedom, and calm. And you don't have to wait to start living it. You can begin today with one breath, one drawer, one mindful moment. That's all it takes. The true power of philosophical minimalism is not found in what you give up, it's found in what you gain. When you begin to simplify your life with intention, drawing on timeless philosophical wisdom, you unlock benefits that are deeper, more lasting, and more liberating than anything consumer culture could ever offer. Philosophical minimalism isn't about restriction, it's about freedom, and the benefits are both emotional and practical, reaching every part of your life. From your mental health to your relationships to your sense of purpose and joy. One of the most immediate transformations people experience is greater mental clarity. We live in an age of noise, constant information, relentless schedules, and cluttered environments. The modern mind is overstimulated and undernourished. But when you start practicing minimalism with a philosophical backbone, letting go of what doesn't matter and focusing on what does, your mind begins to settle. It's like cleaning a dirty window. Suddenly you can see clearly again. Without the fog of excess decisions, distractions, and desires, you begin to notice what's been there all along, your own thoughts, your own priorities, your own values. And in that clarity, anxiety begins to fade. You're no longer being pulled in 20 directions at once. You're no longer weighed down by the pressure to keep up. You start breathing easier, physically and mentally. From that clarity comes another gift, improved productivity and creativity. When you're no longer distracted by constant noise, your focus sharpens. You stop wasting time on low-value tasks and start channeling your energy into what matters most. Whether you're writing, building, teaching, designing, or simply trying to live a more present life, minimalism clears the runway for deep work and deep thought. There's a reason why so many great thinkers and artists throughout history lived simply. They understood that clutter kills focus. They didn't hoard ideas, tools, or distractions. They created space so that their minds could stretch and explore. When you minimize distractions, your mind has room to wander, play, and innovate. And yet philosophical minimalism doesn't just make you more productive, it makes you happier. Not in a surface-level dopamine hit kind of way, but in a deep, grounded, contented kind of way. When you stop chasing after every shiny thing and start appreciating the richness of what you already have, life slows down in the best possible way. You become more present, you savor simple moments. You begin to realize that happiness doesn't come from adding more, but from wanting less. Epictetus understood this over 2,000 years ago. He taught that by simplifying our desires and learning to enjoy life's natural and necessary pleasures, friendship, food, reflection, we become truly free, and that freedom is the root of joy. Minimalism also transforms your relationships. When you no longer fill your time and space with meaningless noise, you create room for connection. When you stop performing for social media and start being fully present with the people in front of you, your relationships deepen. You start to value quality over quantity, not just with stuff, but with people too. And this is something all the great philosophies agree on: relationships matter. Epictetus built his entire school around friendship. The Stoics believed in the brotherhood of mankind. Lao Tzu emphasized compassion as one of the three treasures. Zen Buddhism teaches that presence, true, undivided attention, is the most loving gift you can give. When you strip away everything that distracts you from connection, you're left with something real. History offers powerful examples of these transformations. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the emperor of Rome, constantly reminded himself to live simply. In his journal Meditations, he wrote about stripping away luxury, resisting temptation, and focusing only on what was essential for a virtuous life. He understood that peace couldn't be found in titles or wealth, it could only be found in inner clarity. He ruled one of the largest empires in history, yet he sought the humility and simplicity of a philosopher. Then there's Henry David Thoreau, the American writer and transcendentalist who famously retreated to a small cabin at Walden Pond to live deliberately. His goal wasn't to escape the world, but to better understand it by removing everything unnecessary. He wrote, "Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify." Thoreau believed that in order to truly live, you had to reduce your life to its essence, not because life was meant to be hard, but because it was meant to be real. His experiment in simplicity was a rebellion against the noise of modern life and a return to what matters: nature, thought, solitude, and meaning. Lao Tzu, the father of Taoism, lived a life of quiet retreat and wrote only a short book, the Tao Te Ching. Yet his ideas have echoed for centuries. His teachings encouraged simplicity, stillness, and harmony with the natural world. He didn't measure life by accomplishment, wealth, or fame, but by how aligned a person was with the Tao, the natural flow of life. For Lao Tzu, peace came not from doing more, but from doing less, and doing it with intention and grace. And then there's Epictetus, who created a philosophical community based on the simple life. His garden was a place not of indulgence, but of quiet friendship, reflection, and joy in simple pleasures. He taught his followers that once your basic needs were met, happiness came not from acquiring more, but from desiring less. He understood that real pleasure wasn't about consumption, it was about contentment. But you don't need to be a historical figure to experience these benefits. Ordinary people are living these transformations every day. A busy professional who downsizes their home to reduce stress and create more family time. A teenager who deletes social media and rediscovers the joy of reading and walking outdoors. A young parent who replaces constant multitasking with focused, device-free time with their child. A creator who stops comparing themselves online and rededicates their energy to meaningful work. These are modern examples of philosophical minimalism in action, and they're just as profound as anything written in an ancient scroll. So what kind of transformation can you expect? You might find yourself waking up with less dread and more clarity. Your home will feel lighter, calmer, more breathable. Your time will feel more spacious. Your mind, once filled with racing thoughts, may start to slow down. You'll stop looking outside yourself for happiness and start finding it in simple, ordinary moments. You'll reconnect with your values, your purpose, your relationships. You'll stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You may even begin to feel something rare in modern life: enoughness. That sense that you are not lacking, that nothing is missing, that this moment, this breath, this life, just as it is whole. And that's the real power of philosophical minimalism. It doesn't just make your life look better, it makes your life feel better, lighter, freer, more aligned with who you are and what you truly want. It doesn't promise perfection, it doesn't eliminate all struggle, but it gives you a compass, a way to navigate a noisy world without getting lost in it, a way to come home to yourself, again and again. Throughout this journey, we explored 4 of the world's most profound philosophical traditions: Stoicism, Taoism, Epicureanism, and Zen Buddhism, and found a shared truth woven through them all. Less is not a sacrifice, it's a return. A return to clarity, to presence, to intentional living. In a world addicted to more, these traditions remind us that the answer isn't outside of us or in what we can accumulate, but within us, in what we can let go. Stoicism taught us to focus only on what's within our control and to remove the unnecessary from our lives, whether physical clutter, mental noise, or unhelpful desires. Taoism reminded us to stop forcing life and instead flow with it, to find peace in simplicity, patience, and harmony with nature. Epicureanism gently guided us to redefine pleasure, not as indulgence but as freedom from craving, and to appreciate the quiet joys that surround us each day. And Zen Buddhism showed us the beauty of emptiness, the transformative power of silence, and the radical peace that can be found in just being fully present. Together, these philosophies don't just help us declutter our homes, they help us declutter our minds, our habits, and our very way of living. They don't ask us to live with less for the sake of minimalism as a trend. They invite us to live with less so we can finally live with more. More clarity, more focus, more joy, and more connection to what truly matters. That's the real difference between philosophical minimalism and the surface-level kind that's often marketed to us today. This isn't about aesthetics. It's not about counting how many items you own or trying to look like you have your life together. It's about making space, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, for what genuinely supports your growth, your peace, and your purpose. It's not a rule book, it's a compass, and if you follow it, you may find that you already have everything you were looking for. You just couldn't see it under the weight of everything else. So here's a final question I want you to carry with you. What could you remove today, physically or mentally, to live a more meaningful life? Not tomorrow, not someday, today. It doesn't have to be drastic. Maybe it's deleting one app, letting go of one grudge, donating one item, saying no to one commitment that doesn't align with who you want to be. Small steps are powerful when they're taken in the right direction. And if you ever forget why this matters, remember these words from Lao Tzu. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize nothing is lacking, the whole world belongs to you.